Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film, The Kings of Summer. Three kids who decide to stop hanging out in their parents' house all summer and living under their strict, annoying rules and build a house in the woods where they will live throughout the whole summer. And they run away from home, live in this house made from like stuff they got from construction sites and a porta potty door and kind of a makeshift house, but they make it their own and live on their own without their parents in the woods with this house they have created. When I was a teenager, it was kind of the big boom of teen movies in the late 90s, and I really was never a fan of them. My problem with a lot of the teen movies like She's All That and Things I Hate About You was that they were fantasies. They never felt like my real life in high school. None of that was real. They kind of made people into caricatures, like almost like in a cartoony way, but not in the way, you know, I love cartoons, I love animation, but it wasn't done in a cartoony way that I thought was from a place where they loved animation. I thought it was more because they're like, oh, well, they're teenagers and it's basically kids, so we should make this like kind of in an insulting way, like when parents talk down to you. That's how I always viewed those movies. Kings of Summer is kind of an interesting marriage between a teen movie that is completely a fantasy and one that has like character development and real characters in it and a real arc to it and is really trying to capture parts of teen life. And there's a part at the beginning where the two guys, Joe and Patrick, are getting upset with their parents and having to deal with all their parents' annoying habits and annoying jokes. And that took me right back to being 17 and being in my parents' house, just being pissed off and wanting to just leave and just walk around or something just so you can get some space from them, and because they're like so fucking annoying. That I thought really captured a bit of teenage life. But then when they eventually move out and start building this house, it falls apart not because of the house, which is, you know, kind of a fantasy in a way. Well, it is a fantasy. I mean, how many people really do that? That this movie relies so heavily on, instead of character development where you'd have these characters talk about like kind of meaningless teenage things, or it might seem that way when you're watching it, but later you realize, you know the character so much more because of it. Instead of doing things like that, they have these musical montages, and they do them like a lot of times, like an annoying amount of times, where you don't really get to hang out with the characters. You get to see these montages of what they've been doing in the woods. It's like little music videos. I guess for the style of the movie it works, but I think it kind of betrays what it's trying to do and what this movie thinks it's trying to do. If it had just shown me the stuff like what it was like having that conversation before they jumped off, it's like a big cliff and then there's like a river below it. If we had heard that conversation, that would mean more than having some dumb song that I've already forgotten play over it. It didn't really mean as much. It's kind of being two different kind of teen movies. You know, it's like it's hard to be She's All That and Freaks and Geeks at the same time. Even though I know Freaks and Geeks is a TV show, but Kings of Summer is trying to be kind of natural and really show you what it's like to be a teen and things, but at the same time they mess it up. There's this character named Biagio who is basically like a Disney sidekick pushed in there. He's just there to like make stupid jokes. He kind of goes in the vein of what I hate about teen movies. You're talking down to the kids. You're not really seeing into their world, and by talking down to them they need this character who's like Donkey from fucking Shrek. None of his jokes were very funny. He was a really unnecessary character. He kind of comes out of nowhere. They didn't write him particularly that well. Him and the musical montages hurt this film. If you look at just a recent film like Perks of Being a Wallflower, how much that's said about those characters to have them drive over that bridge and like he sits on the truck and like has that David Bowie song play and everything. That told me a lot about those characters. But when you're like cutting between all these different things and I'm not getting these moments that I'm supposed to have to grow with these characters, that it thought it was really giving me a really strong arc, when it was like, it was kind of a strong arc, but it was like a weaker arc, especially the character Joe, played by Nick Robinson, and his dad, Frank, who's played by Nick Offerman. That kind of works, but it just felt like there really needed to be more. It almost felt like this movie, there should have been a longer cut that kept all of those moments in it. I think that would be a more real film, and it would connect far more emotionally than this film did. And you might say, you know, maybe I'm being a pretentious fuck or whatever, but character development is so important to a teen movie, because think about what teenagers do, particularly in the summer. They hang out. Their whole fucking lives are character development. If you're going over that and skimping on that, you're not understanding your characters and the subject matter and who this is trying to play towards. This movie is pretty much they're hanging out in the woods. I want to see them hang out in the woods. I don't want to see them literally bang sticks on a big pipe or something. I don't really understand what that had to do with anything. There are just too many moments that just didn't really go anywhere for a film that really needed to have a lot of meaning throughout it. They were trying to verge too much off what they're really trying to do and what this film acts like it's trying to do. I'm not going to say it's a bad movie. It's a flawed film by a director who's not really trusting the instincts of the material. It was still kind of enjoyable, you know, despite all of that. So if you have seen The Kings of Summer and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.